Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me for this week's Object Talk. My name is Emma, and I am the Engagement Officer at the Jewish Museum, London. Today, you are joining me for an object talk about a caricature in our collection. This object is one of over 40,000 objects in the Jewish Museum London's designated collection that shows the diversity of Jewish life and history, and our programs exist to explore connections between faiths and cultures. The theme across the museum for this month is change, and we will be sharing objects that explore moments of change and individuals who have brought change to their community and beyond. For today's object, I have chosen an image that relates to a period of change in British Jewish history. I would now like to share this object with you. We can see it on our screens now. It is a satire on the foundation of University College London. It was made by Robert Cruikshank. We have multiple examples of his caricatures in our collection, and they do tend to include anti-Semitic caricatures and stereotypes. This example is criticising the founding of University College London. It depicts a man in the centre. This is Isaac Lyon Goldsmith. He was a leading campaigner for Jewish emancipation in Britain. Born in 1778 in January, he was a financier who fought for many freedoms for Jewish people. Perhaps the best known is his involvement in campaigning for the Jewish Disabilities Bill that allowed Jewish people to become MPs. The first of these MPs was Lionel de Rothschild in 1858, and you can see an image of him from our collection on our screens. However, before Isaac Lyon Goldsmith took up this campaign, he worked on another, Jewish access to higher education. At the time of Goldsmith's birth, there were only two universities in the country, Oxford and Cambridge. There was also Lincoln's Inn, which he stands in front of in this image. Let's take a closer look. We can see it towards the bottom left-hand side. Lincoln's Inn was one of the inns of court that date back to the Middle Ages. They were places people could train in law. However, they were not universities, and so could not award a degree. Goldsmith was one of the founders of University College, which he holds above his head in this image. He was one of 3 men to purchase the land required for such a university and gift it for the creation of University College London. University College London would go on to be the first university in this country to admit students regardless of religion or indeed race or class. It was set up with the intention of being a secular alternative to the existing universities of Cambridge and Oxford, which were both very religious in their nature. In fact, Jewish people would only be able to become full members of Oxford or Cambridge in 1871. This was when the Universities Test Act was passed. The founding of this new university is mocked in this caricature. It is called the political Toyman, and it shows Goldsmith trying to sell his university in the style of one selling toys, giving the idea that it's something unnecessary, a bit whimsical, almost laughable in nature. He is trying to get people to invest in this university. Hanging over his left-hand shoulder on our right is a pink book which reads List of Shareholders. And then over on our left, we can see a purple bag which reads Subscriptions. There are speech bubbles coming out of the university at the top. They read things like syntax and etymology and so on. We can all interpret this image for ourselves, and that might mean different things for different people. For me, when I look at it, I feel as though the artist is trying to create the impression that the studies are as unnecessary as possible by using these different words. Around the waist of Goldsmith in this image are figures that are perhaps toys. One of these, the second from the right, has anti-Semitic stereotypes and caricatures. This is thought that the four figures represent the types of people who would be able to attend a university when University College London was founded. One of these figures, the second from the left, is a woman, suggesting that women would be able to attend this university and mocking this idea. University College London was the first university to admit women on equal terms with men in this country. The first women in England to graduate from a university did indeed graduate from UCL. However, this would not be until 1869, which was several years after it opened. University College was founded in February 1825, shortly after Goldsmith had gifted them the land he'd purchased for this purpose. Whilst it was intended from the start to be a university, it did not actually get a royal charter until 1836. This was largely due to opposition from the Church of England, along with the existing universities. So, whilst it operated from 1825, it couldn't actually award degrees until 1836. So, whilst it was the first university, or what would go on to be a university, to accept students regardless of race or religion, this delay meant that the first Jewish person in Britain to graduate with a degree didn't actually graduate from here. Instead, it was Nathan Lazarus Ben Moel who can claim this title, graduating from the University of Dublin in 1836. This university having gained its charter in 1832. At the Jewish Museum London, we do recognise that this satire does contain anti-Semitic stereotypes, and so, of course, is offensive. However, the reason I wanted to share it with you is because for me, it really emphasises the opposition that Isaac Lyon Goldsmith was facing in founding University College London, and indeed the opposition that all the founders of the university were faced with at this time, what they were combating to set up a university that admitted people regardless of their religion or race. The role that University College London played, and that of Isaac Lyon Goldsmith, and indeed all the founders of this university, was very influential in establishing the belief that people should have access to higher education regardless of religion or class or race, and then, years later, gender. Goldsmith spent much of his time campaigning for change. He campaigned for prison reform along with Elizabeth Fry and for social reforms. He was made a baronet for his public service, making him the first Jewish person to become a baronet. Goldsmith, along with the key founders of University College London, brought change to the way education was viewed and were a key part of the much longer campaign for Jewish emancipation in this country. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me for this week's Object Talk. Do join us again next week for another Object Talk on the theme of change. We will see you there.